England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com to get more from the show. Please be sure to check that out, and that is a Substack. If you want to support the program, that's a great way to do it. It's also a great way to receive all our episodes in your inbox without having to go to said other social media platforms. Outside of that, we're on YouTube, podcast platforms, and everything of that nature. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the program every Saturday, 8:30 a.m. GraniteGrock.com also picks it up over there, as well as Concord TV. Want to reach out to me? Be sure to email aj@newenglandtake.com. If you got comments, suggestions, hatred for anything I say, that's the place to air your grievances, and I'd love to hear from you. Also looking for guests, so anytime, hit me up. All right, this week's episode, we're going to go all over the place in the news because it is just a fun mess of crazy, whether it's vehicle inspection, Stephen Colbert and the FCC, the Wolfboro-Tuftonboro Democrats sharing some craziness from the Moms Rising organization, including a quote-unquote burn book. It's something to behold and full of things that are you either, why are you caring about this? Starts off with something that's inaccurate and just goes into chaos from there. And we'll see where else we go after that, because the world's in chaos. All right, let's start off with an update when it comes to the New Hampshire Vehicle Inspection Program. The New Hampshire Department of Justice put out a press release on February 13th, and it's just fantastic, and it's being backed by police officers around the state. So this is, once again, Department of Safety, Vehicle Inspection Program, Public Guidance. The New Hampshire Department of Justice and Department of Safety are providing a further update on the state's Vehicle Inspection Program in response to the Federal District Court's January 27th, 2026 preliminary injunction order. The Vehicle Inspection Program is suspended until further notice. Inspection stations will no longer be authorized to issue state inspection stickers, and vehicles will not be required to obtain an annual state inspection at this time. Also, drivers are still responsible under current law to ensure any vehicle driven in New Hampshire is safe to operate regardless of the status of the inspection program. This is super important to know because as I drive up my road here in Concord, all the garages, they are full of, hey, get your inspection sticker here. Hey, we're doing inspections again. Now's your chance to get it. Funny thing, when you're doing something that the government that regulates said program is saying don't do it, and you're doing things of that nature, I'm sure all you small garages won't have anything to worry about, but you get a board Department of Safety or Department of Motor Vehicles regulator. You guys might be playing a little risky there with your sticker program, and this is all because this was going to be out the door. It was supposed to already be done the end of January, but Gordon Darby, which is the company that was got the contract to make sure the emissions program part of that, they were the vendor for that, sued the state to try and make it happen. The federal court said, hey, you guys can't stop it. You need to get this lawsuit figured out first. And the executive council and the state house have said, no, we're not doing this. You guys can complain all you want that you're not getting that this program's going away, and there's nothing you can do about it. And guess what? I don't even understand how this is held up in court. Maybe they got this stay for now, but when it comes to in the long run, if they no longer have a contract, if you do not have a contract, how can you claim that you are having damages occur? Like you can't sue someone if there's no damages. That's the nature of it. The EPA maybe could come at the state for it, but there's like 18 states or something of that nature that already that don't have an inspection program. So New Hampshire's not the only one, and the data doesn't show that removing an inspection program really has a statistical impact on anything when it comes to safety, insurance, anything of that nature. So this is just I'm very pat on the back when it comes to the Department of Safety for speaking up, backing what our executive council has said, and coming off of that, it's great to see the Hampton Police Department posting on Facebook. Here's a brief update on the New Hampshire inspection requirement. For more information, check out the press release. I'll put the press release in the episode description. Once again, February 13th, from the Hampton Police Department, New Hampshire residents do not need to take their motor vehicles in for annual inspections until further notice. Inspection stickers will not be issued until further notice. Therefore, citations, this is the important part, will not be issued for expired inspection stickers, though New Hampshire residents are responsible for ensuring their vehicle are in compliance with New Hampshire law, and New Hampshire residents are still required to register your vehicles. So, if the police aren't enforcing it, the law, any stay that the federal court wants to do is irrelevant, in my opinion. So this is my analysis of the situation from a legal perspective. If there's no enforcement mechanism, a law is useless and invalid and isn't going anywhere. I mean, this is key. A law is only as effective, or a court order is only as effective as the enforcement mechanism behind it. If there's no enforcement mechanism behind it, guess what? Clothes are off, we have an inspection. So, once again, hats off to the Department of Safety for standing up to this organization, Gordon Darby, that's suing the state, because I don't think it's going to hold up. It's eventually going to fail. I don't envision the Trump administration, EPA, doing anything on this. We've talked about this for weeks. Let's move on. All right, over to NBC News. Stephen Colbert says CBS didn't air interview out of fear of FCC. Colbert kicked off Monday's episode of The Late Show by saying the network's lawyers told him he couldn't have state Texas Rep. James Tallarico on the broadcast. And this is really kicked off a whole bunch of nonsense. And I understand. I understand from a certain perspective that it gives a certain look that the Trump administration is pushing speech, removing free speech, restricting what these people can do, and things of that nature. Here's the deal. This is a long-term issue with the FCC, where if you're on broadcast television, broadcast radio, anything of that nature, you need to give equal airtime. If you are strictly showing one side, depends on the stations exactly. Radio might be, I think they might have fixed it a long time ago, but broadcast television still very much has equal airtime going on, and that's what's going on here. So, and as it is, it's not the Trump administration specifically on this. It is the lawyers at NBC that have said that he's not allowed to do it. The Trump administration has not, and they might have made comments after the fact, but they did not reach out to NBC, say, hey, you got Tallarico coming on, you can't do that, you got to have the other crazy Democrats on there too. I haven't seen anything with regards to that. This is an old FCC thing where he can't just have one candidate for the Democratic primary on there from Texas. He's got to get the other candidates on there too, or at least another candidate. He can't just stop at one. Yeah, I mean, that's the FCC. And right now, here's the real issue with it. This is the issue with the previous outbursts from the FCC and the Trump administration in recent months is broadcast stations are scared that they're going to get enforcement actions put against them. And enforcement actions for television is huge. You got to figure every single station that picks up a syndicated program like Stephen Colbert is going to up the fine every single time. It's going to be more and more of an issue of tens to millions of dollars, depending on what it is. The FCC's enforcement is extreme. It's especially if you're a nationwide syndicated program of this nature. So I get it. I get why NBC said don't do this. I commented on a lefty's X account on this, and our friend, he's not a friend, Colin Booth of Granite Post was saying this is because of the Trump administration, blah-de-blah. And I have in the comments, Colin, if you guys would stop being so toxic, so many here on the ground in New Hampshire would be fine with the FCC going away. The more conservative Republican branch, they're probably fine with it. They enjoy the strong arm of the government when it comes to the things they want. But when it comes to the libertarian right here in the state, I say so many of them are done with the FCC that the FCC should either go away or be drastically reduced to just monitor to make sure that there's not overlap of broadcast bans, things of that nature, because that is a legitimate issue. We need to make sure that radio stations, TV stations, ham radio broadcasters, things of that nature don't overlap, because it can cause real detrimental issues to how 5G internet works, 4G internet on your cell phone, things like that, how wireless routers work, and have bad actors that come in and do things they shouldn't do that cause dangerous interactions that stop emergency broadcasts, that stop the emergency services from doing their job. So the FCC does have a role, but it should be drastically reduced in my opinion. When it comes to content, enough's enough. It's 2026. We don't need them monitoring the content of language. If it's a commercial radio station, they're going to keep the language clean no matter what, because they have an economic incentive to keep it clean. It's just like when you're on YouTube and things of that nature. If you're swearing constantly or saying things that are tremendously inappropriate for certain audiences, you're not going to get the commercial money that the clean channels get, the family channels. So with that, I think that's enough economic incentive nowadays. I mean, how much longer are we really going to pay attention to broadcast TV? I had broadcast TV for a couple months at one point because I had a deal and I promptly canceled it because I didn't want to pay for it because I wasn't using it. I'm a millennial. I'm 38 and turning 39 soon. I'm on the if I'm the demographic that would be having that new subscription to a cable plan if my generation was going to start doing it. I'm involved with media. I'm online, do all sorts of stuff. I use Netflix. I stream. I go to YouTube. The Hulu subscriptions, the Spotify, things of that nature. I don't even know how to, I hate to admit it, I don't even know how to get an antenna connected to my TV if I needed to have an add-on for HD. Like, I don't even know how that works anymore. Modern televisions, the default is use HDMI, things like that. I don't know if I would get, and I know I get WMUR and New Hampshire PBS, maybe some Boston stations. I honestly don't know because it's not something I ever care about. The FCC needs to. This is one of the reasons why so many of us on the right and the libertarian side of the house were really excited by the Trump administration, because the guy that wants to throw the table and cause chaos, we'd hope he would make drastic reforms like, hey, get rid of the FCC's authority to take care of certain things and work with the Republican-controlled Congress to get things done of that nature. But instead, we're not. We're having a failing or flailing international policy. We have just him throwing middle fingers figuratively at Minnesota by having ICE do things. When there's things on from an administrative perspective that the president has authority to do, that code and stuff was supposed to be the golden ticket to getting resolved, instead we're here just with nothing. And it's sad, it's disappointing. I don't want to have the left have ammunition like they do around this Colbert thing, which is honestly nonsense. He should have just invited the other side, or they've been doing this forever. I mean, does this mean in the past they were ignoring the FCC regulations? That's problematic on the face of it, but here we are. All right, I want to move on over to Wolfboro, Tuftonboro Democrats. So I was perusing X, as I am one to do on a way too regular basis, and came across a post that no longer exists. I went back. My reply did fairly well in impressions, and I discovered that the post is no longer on the Wolfboro Tuftonboro Democrats. Wolf Tuft for Dems. They no longer have their this post on there at all. So they removed it, probably realizing there's issues. So Moms Rising is it's an activist organization. They get out there, moms to vote, and all sorts of LGBTQ things. They have a fund that's a charity that supposedly does not support or oppose any candidate for elected public office. I think they're voting for Democrats. They only care about Democrats. They have a welfare organization. Good on them on having like programs for charity and things of that nature. That's fine, but they're about Moms Rising. First, a handful of women came together, and then that handful became hundreds. The hundreds became thousands, and through friends telling friends, Moms Rising is now more than 1 million members strong and growing. That means they added all their social media platforms together, but whatever. What does Moms Rising do? We take on most critical issues facing women, mothers, and families by educating the public and mobilizing massive grassroots action to bring voices and real-world experiences of women and mothers to our local, state, and nation's leaders, amplify voices and policy issues. Grassroots, it's all just stock things when it comes to any activist organization. This is just the way it is. So they're pushing for childcare, but then their blog post that's on the front of the page is the latest. It's not that young people don't want children; it's that they can't afford having children. So basically, it's one of these left-wing groups that's pushing for more and more childcare funding from the government. They expect the state and federal government to fund everything and fix a broken childcare system. Is extraordinarily broken economically from a numbers perspective. It does not make any sense to have widespread young children being in childcare. You can't pay people enough to make it economically viable without extraordinary subsidies. And I have huge issues with that, but this just goes to show right there in the first post what they're going for with what they're doing. But the burn book, is the thing that is what I found on the Wolfboro Tuftonboro Democrats page, and I needed to bring it to the show because it's just gold. First of all, it looks like it was made by a 6-year-old. I don't know why. It's on purpose. They definitely did it on purpose. It's like they did Microsoft Paint and like used the trackpad on their laptop to draw it out, and then did serial killer letters over it for some reason where it looks like it's cutouts. A little creepy, but okay. They are not the villains. They think they're the good guys. We'll move on. And about every move in New Hampshire politics tells a story, and we're writing them all down. This isn't gossip, it's the public record. Power decisions and trail lawmakers and elected officials leave behind. We're tracking decisions that matter, the big yeses, not 3 S's, I misread that. The telling no's, the mysterious missing votes, and out loud inside thought they didn't think anyone was listening to, underlined and served in ink. If an elected official thought nobody was paying attention, surprise, we've got the votes, the quotes, and the receipts. It does, for the record, they did do that at least. Because in the end, accountability isn't optional. It's the spark that ignites the burn with the serial killer letters again. Kind of weird. It's a thing. So this is specific for elected officials. That's the goal, which is disappointing. I was really hoping to make it into this book. It's fascinating. It's a cast of characters. A bunch of them I openly support. So, but this is, they have a content warning on it, and it's about accountability. So basically, if you don't vote for them the way they want or behave in whatever way they want, they're tone policing or calling out the votes. Whatever. But the issue is, wait a second. They removed the page. Good job, ladies. Little pat on the head. You did a good job. You fixed your error. The thing is, I took screen grabs of everything. I figured that might be useful. So I took a screen grab of the slide of concern that they had on there because they screwed up. Because their first page is New Hampshire State Representative Jason Osborne, a repeat offender with a little lipstick kiss next to it. A little weird. They don't understand tone. I don't think they understand tone at all. So this was so the New Hampshire Libertarian Party's X account, which is run by Representative Osborne, Majority Leader, New Hampshire House. Okay, we'll come back to that. Amplified and posted content that threatened a local journalist and celebrated the prospect of his death and warned him to leave New Hampshire for his safety. And it has a bunch of stuff, but before I say it, because I want it to be very clear, Jason Osborne's a Republican. He doesn't control the New Hampshire, the LPNH X account, which is world-renowned for being a bunch of edgy boys. Jeremy Kaufman is the well-known guy for being one of the guys that runs that account. He says some things, I've had him on the show in the past. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, though we do agree when it comes to some politics. This is not Jason Osborne. Guys, this is defamation. Like, you can't do this. But they did remove it from the book, so good on them. It's probably the reason why the Democratic operation there decided to remove the page. But it has the LPNH account stating, when the state arrests and punishes a murderer, libertarians shouldn't complain. When the state kills a communist, libertarians shouldn't complain, ... And then Colin Booth of the Granite Post, once again, retweeted, said, can't make this up. The New Hampshire Libertarian Party openly defending the federal government summarily executing citizens in the street. With a comment from LPNH, better get out of New Hampshire while it's safe to do so. As I said, the LPNH account is full of edgy boys. That's what they do. There's another post here where it's a retweet from LPNH of what Colin wrote. Colin Booth is a vile communist. From our values, he is roughly as evil as a rapist or a thief. Though should he die for any reason, we will celebrate. As libertarians fighting an existential battle to exist, we will never, under any circumstances, object to the death of a socialist. This is my fundamental issue with the LPNH crew and Jeremy Kaufman is they believe in the national divorce in the most extreme way where people should move out. I think it's perfectly fine if leftists want to move out of the state because they're not happy with the political situation. I have zero issue with that at all. I don't take it to this extreme. I think we can come together on many things, and it's the nature of our liberal-style government. Liberal as in not Democrat, but it's the definition of the word. So a little bit of an issue with that stuff, but it's just hilarious. They screwed up the first page on here, basically, where they had Majority Leader Osborne running LPNH. Look. Free Stater? Sure. I mean, Free Stater and the LPNH, there's a lot of convening circles in that Venn diagram for sure, but to screw up something with a House Majority Leader right away is pretty bad. All right, going back to the book itself, we'll just look at a couple of these while we got a bit of time together here. Travis Corcoran, he's an edgy boy. He probably believes a lot of the stuff. I like a good part of what he does. I don't agree with everything. So the original tweet from Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, I'm okay, I'm a survivor, so this small agitator isn't going to intimidate me from doing my work. I don't let the bullies win. And then Travis 4NH retweeted saying, we're going to put you in a cage. Look, she may have married her brother, but I don't think we can put her in a cage. I think she's naturalized at this point. Going up to next is State Rep Len Turcotte from Barrington. While pushing his bill repealing child care grants, he called support for families, quote, another cradle-to-grave entitlement, end quote, and said a family of four making $113,000 a year, quote, should be able to afford their own daycare, end quote, called presumptive eligibility fiscal insanity, and pointed to alleged fraud in Minnesota to argue government shouldn't help in childcare. As I said previously, I believe there are fundamental issues with the whole economics of our childcare system, and you can't rely on the state to take it over. I agree with Rep. Turcotte on this. I'm not going to watch a House hearing at this point for the shows. We're only do a 30-minute episode here on the New England Take. But yeah, it's true. If you're making $113,000 a year, you should be able to afford daycare. If it's one parent, especially if it's two parents working, hey, guess what? You want to have kids, there's sacrifice. We've taken tremendous sacrifice in my household financially to make sure my wife can be a stay-at-home mom and take care of my kids so he's not stuck in daycare after school or spending his whole summer stuck inside in daycare or doing whatever program. It doesn't make sense financially. And I think it's better for children overall to not be stuck in this when they're in their most young, most vulnerable ages, to be vulnerable to taking in whatever is going on around them. They should be home as much as possible. Sorry, not sorry. That's just a normal old traditional value thing on that. Rep. Joe Alexander sponsored a bill to restrict housing for undocumented immigrants, saying it would keep, quote, lawbreakers out of our state and out of our country, end quote, blaming the housing shortage on, quote, people that are here illegally living in apartments, taking up units, end quote, and declaring, quote, illegal aliens are not welcome in the Granite State, end quote, before asking to be dismissed because he couldn't answer more questions. Once again, as a socially traditional guy who thinks we shouldn't rely on the government for everything, that makes sense. If you come into our country illegally, you should get no services. Period. Across the board. I don't care how desperate your situation is. You should not be receiving government, our tax dollars, money to exist. I'm not sorry about that. There is also an economic impact to tens of millions. So this goes beyond New Hampshire here. So when he's saying that, he might be meaning specifically New Hampshire. I honestly don't know the numbers here. I think there's much bigger issues with immigration in states like Maine and Minnesota, New York, Texas, California, and things of that nature. Here in New Hampshire, I don't know the direct economic impact, but when you introduce tens of millions of people to the state, of course it's going to have an impact on the cost of housing. It's basic economics. If there is little supply because of a tremendous influx of people like we currently have here in New Hampshire, of people fleeing Boston, Massachusetts, New York, all these enormous cities to come to the free state of New Hampshire, it's going to have a dramatic impact. We've seen a tremendous influx of people coming into this state since COVID, and any person that's receiving benefits that ultimately are going to be a lot, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars over the course of years, they should have those benefits cut off. This is just basic Republican talking points. So I don't understand why this is, once again, it's got the repeat offender kissy face. I don't know why their tone is so screwed up in this book. We'll do one more briefly here. State Senator Victoria Sullivan minimized a student-led protest on Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, questioned its legitimacy because it happened during school hours and called for repercussions for the students involved. Yeah, if you're skipping school to go play activist, you should have detention. If you were encouraged by your teachers, to attend an activist protest of this nature, those teachers or staff or whoever should have consequences. It is not the role for the state government to get involved in politics in this way. Especially these are state employees that are, I should say school district employees that are public servants, should not be encouraging anything of this nature. This is tremendously inappropriate. This should be something that is fireable on the spot, or in the very least tremendous impact to their ability to continue to work there. I am not sorry for that. Victoria Sullivan, state senator, should not be sorry for that. These ICE protests have become unhinged. I can't drive up my damn road in Concord without being inconvenienced by 15 million protesters on a weekly basis. I don't know who they're convincing. Maybe it's just to rile up the base. I could kind of understand that from an activist perspective, just trying to keep the base motivated, keep them motivated. Makes you a bad neighbor, in my opinion. If you're blocking up the whole road, going back and forth 15 million times across the street so cars can't make it across, I'm so happy it's not directly in front of my place, but it's just cringe-inducing every time you try and go by the State House, and I wish it wasn't happening. I don't understand in the long run, way far away from Election Day, what impact it could possibly have, and I wish it would stop. All right, Burn book, I'll put a link in the description down below. Watch the video on YouTube and Substack because you'll be able to see what exactly I'm talking about here with the burn book. It's so cringe, it's terrible. I don't know what what tone they're going for with it, but they missed something when they were thinking it through. And at least they removed the page of Majority Leader Osborne from being in the book because he does not run the LPNH accounts. But thanks for that hilarious little moment that I got to have online. All right, NewEnglandTake.com. Please check out the Substack. It's a huge help to have people over there checking out the program, get the videos there, as well as my New England News Roundup every week. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the show every Saturday, 8:30 a.m. Next up over there is Facing the Future by the Concord Coalition. Thank you to Concord TV and thegranitegrok.com for picking up the show. We'll talk to you soon.